What up, what up, what up? Just homeboy Maul the Pimp, aka MTP. And welcome to another edition of the Pimpoholic TV podcast. I got a special guest in here. Been knowing this young lady for a long time, before she made her transition. So let me introduce who I got. I got former, former on-air personality for Pound 94.3 in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Now the current on-air personality for Magic Baltimore 95.9, home of the Ricky Smiley Morning Show, based out of Baltimore, Maryland. I'm talking about Miss Nori Nori. Welcome to Pimpoholic TV, and how you doing, lady?
I'm excited to be here, Ma. Thank you for having me.
Man, thank you for tuning in. Man, how everything been going with you since you done made your move?
Life is good. I honestly can't complain. I've literally been here 3 years now in the Maryland area. When I first moved here, I lived in DC, like Washington, DC proper,
Right.
for about a year. And then the last 2 years, I've been living in Maryland, right outside of DC.
Let me ask you this before we get into the interview. Like, man, how you liking it up there? Because every time I've been to DC, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, it's always in the wintertime. And it's cold as hell up there, man. So you're a Southern girl, so I mean, how's it going for you right now as far as on the weather tip? You liking that?
It's funny because this week we're expecting snow. But since I've been here, yes, it is very, very cold. It's a
Right,
different type of cold for sure.
right.
But I haven't experienced like this super harsh winter. It snowed really hard the first year that I was here. But after that, we may get a little ice here and there, but it ain't stopping the show, and it damn show ain't stopping work.
Gotcha, gotcha. All right, now we all know Nora for radio and all that, but I'm gonna go back to the beginning. What were you doing? What was your occupation? What were you doing before radio came into your life? What were you doing then?
Working at the mall, working at Hamilton Place.
All right, okay. Working well.
I started at Power 94 pretty much right out of high school. Like my
Okay.
first year of college, I was on the radio, and it's crazy how the situation happened. But I was going to Chattanooga State. Chris Taylor was a teacher there. Ephraim Graham, who did local news, was one of my instructors. And basically, they were just instrumental in saying, go get it. Like, why not try for an internship early? You may get it because you're in communications courses. And way before it was time for me to actually have an internship, I just kind of jumped out there and reached out to the radio station. I reached out in high school, and they told me to come back when I was in college, and I did. And I knew once they let me in the door, it was no turning back. So literally, I worked at the mall in high school. I had, a few odd end jobs. Like I worked at New Roads. I don't know if y'all remember that.
I heard of that.
For a little while, that warehouse job, but little stuff like that. But I entered my career fairly early, first year of college.
So you came in as an intern, and from there you got hired.
Yeah, so I interned for a while. It wasn't like I was an intern, a few months. I interned for a while. When my internship was over, I just stayed. Like I literally was like, I'm just gonna show up the next day, and if don't nobody say nothing, I'm gonna show up the day after. So your internship is a few months. My
Right.
internship was over, and I just kept coming, and nobody was like, "Hey, your internship up." They were like, "We got work, so yeah, jump in there, load commercials, voice this commercial." You know what I'm saying? So
Right, right.
learn production. Yeah, like we'll teach you, and so that's what I did.
Well, let me ask you this then. I want to talk about the grind part of that. So when you first came in the door, you came as an intern. So did you go right on air, or did you have to come in and play these little nitpicking roles, and then when the door opened to get on air, you took over from there, and then you kind of never looked back? Kind of give us that role of coming in as an intern until you got to what we know you as on Power 94.
Well, you
Paint that picture.
absolutely don't get to jump in and be on the radio. It's definitely a grind, as you said. And for me, I love every aspect of radio. So nothing was too small for me to do.
Okay.
Nothing was too small, whether it was do production, whether it was just in there practicing, learning the equipment. I was with all of, but nobody had to tell me to show up. I was there from the time them doors open to the time them doors closed. Like, for me, it was learning every aspect of radio from learning how to use Adobe, learning how to use Vox Pro. When I first came in, it was reel to reel. Like we was
Right.
slicing a reel, we was
Right.
taping it together with a blade. Like we was doing work. So obviously the end goal was to be a radio personality, but it was nothing that was grunt work. Um, that I didn't appreciate. You know, when I first came in, we were actually using CDs. So,
Yeah.
you know, making sure that the new music was where it needed to be, making sure that, you know, everything that I knew how to work the board, that I knew how the hotkeys worked on the screen. All of that was important to me. There was nothing that Jay Holloway, that Magic, Eric, Donna, Keith Landecker, EJ, Tula, it was nothing that they could ask me that felt too small. If they was like, hey, we're doing a live broadcast, we need you to set up a table, we need you to get this chair out the truck, I was with it because I knew the end result and I knew my talent. I knew I believed in myself and I absolutely knew that I wanted to get paid for talking, and that was the end result for me. So it was nothing that they could ask me to do, and that I wasn't like, hell yeah, I'll do it, because I was also building relationships and nurturing relationships.
Right. That's so important. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, so I wasn't coming in not willing to listen. Anything that Magic told me, I soaked it up. Anything that Donna L told me, I soaked it up. Cole Brown, Andrea Perry, anything, any gem or information that they were willing to share with me, I was there to receive it.
Right. Right. So how long from you came in as an intern? How long before that door opened up to actually get on air? How did it open up? How did it come about?
Well, normally what happens is someone on air does something that caused them to no longer be a radio personality on air.
Okay.
And for my case, it was around Christmas time. And, you know, people want to go out of town. People want to do stuff and be with their family. And they were trying to figure out, you know, who could fill in. So, you know, I volunteered. And I think that night I just ran the board or something. I don't even think I talked. You know what I'm saying? Just to kind of watch and make sure everything played the way it was supposed to play. But an opportunity, actually, Keith Landecker asked me one day, like, what you here for? You still here. Like, what you want? And I said, I want your job. And he was like, okay,
You said that to him.
yeah. I said, I want your job. And he said, okay, now outside of that, what do you want? I said, I want to be on the radio. That's why I'm still here. And he said, okay. So I started to shadow. Donna L was the first person that let me shadow her show.
Okay.
So I started to sit in on nighttime and kind of learn how she talks to the people, learn her rapport with people. There's certain people that will call, she already knew their name because they called so much. So I learned the importance of, you know, really connecting with the listeners. And from there, you know, it was just kind of like, all right, Keith was like, you know what, we thinking of doing a late night show with the Baker Boys. You can kind of jump in between the segments and talk, but it's the Baker Boys show, but we need somebody to run the show, but I'm gonna let you talk. And
Okay.
that's literally how I got involved with actually talking on air. And I'll never forget it. Shout out to J Rob. Oh, I used to love me some J Rob.
Man,
J
this is
Rob was
a
on the
long time.
radio, and he was actually, it was like a weekend shift. He was getting off the radio. And I was so nervous. I came in early and I talked to J Rob, and I was just like, you know, I think I am ready. I'm good. And oh my gosh, I did he stayed until I did my very first break. I did my first break and I forgot to cut the mic off. And in the studio, when you don't cut the mic off, you don't hear nothing. Like, it's just, that's how you know the mic is on.
Okay.
But this is my first time ever, heart beating through my chest. And I forget to cut the mic off, and J Rob had like stepped out the studio to give me an opportunity to feel comfortable. And, you know, I forget. And I was like, fuck, shit. Oh, and all of a sudden, J Rob come bolting into the studio and hit the mic. And I said, oh, did that go over the air? And he was like, yeah. And I was so embarrassed. Obviously, you know, you can't cuss on the radio.
Right.
And he just sat there. He was red. I was red. We just sat there looking at each other. And Keith Landecker called and said, you know what you did? I was like, yeah. He was like, is J Rob still there? I was like, yeah. And he was like, we'll talk about it Monday.
You was nervous the whole weekend, huh?
I thought I was gonna get fired. I thought it was over. I thought it was over before it started. But by God's grace, Keith Landecker is such a good teacher and mentor and coach. He literally sat me down and explained to me, this is why you have to know how to run the board. You forgot to cut the mic off after you talked.
Right.
You got to cut the mic off. You know what I'm saying? And he was like, you know, step one, talk, cut the mic off. Okay. So we just kind of went over some fundamentals again, but he was just he literally was like, I believe in you. Like, I know you can do this. I know you're going to be great.
Right.
Everybody mess up. This is a part of your story.
Right. I want to go back on something you said. This is you said something about building relationships and stuff like that. I heard you say that. I want to expound on that. Now, I'm glad you said that coming from a radio perspective. Nor I try to tell so many artists here in the city this. Some of them listen, some of them don't. You have to leave the city. You have to build relationships and network with people. That will take you further than any dollar amount will. I try to
Mm-hmm.
tell people that so much. So I'm glad that you said that. So speak on that from I guess uh really I want the artists to hear this coming from a radio person. How important is it for these young artists to go out of the city and build relationships? Just speak on why that is important to do. They need to hear that.
So it's important for a number of reasons, and I think that's a fantastic question, Ma. It's important for a number of reasons. What happens is artists get frustrated. I feel you. You trying to get your music on the radio. You know you the hottest thing in the city. You know the people need to hear you. The people support you. You got you and your homeboys and your family, and then you got other people that are becoming fans of your music. I get it, right? But in the process, there is a process. Radio is a business. And so you cannot disrespect, talk bad about the people that you want to help you. That doesn't mean I never understood why artists do that. Like, I get it. Vent to your best friend, vent to your lady, vent to your homeboys, but don't go to social media. And, don't make videos and YouTubes about my city don't love me. That's not true. We don't know you. We have listened to your music, and you may think it is the best thing ever. Not saying that it's not.
Right.
But again, radio is a business. We can't just throw any and every artist on the radio because they believe that they got the hottest song. That's just not how it works. Now, do artists pay to have their music on the radio? No, that's payola. We don't do that. That's why we have musical outlets like Street Flavor. That's why we also give artists an opportunity if they have representation, because it's certain things that have to transpire as far as, getting to know the program director, getting to know the music director, but then also, is this a song that fits the format of the station? Is this a song that can blend in with these top tier artists? If we playing Drake, Nicki Minaj, and Meek Mill, and we're playing a throwback Tupac song, does your song make sense in the grand scheme of how the music is flowing? Does your song fit the format? I've had people that have brought me like a jazz record, and it's like, we need this on Power 94. That's not even the format. I've had people that's brought me records from up and coming children, and that's great. But if your child doesn't have a mixed and mastered record, then the quality may not be that good. It's like so many reasons why, and when I say child, adults may not even know what quality of music actually goes on the radio. Just because you record on Adobe Audition, or you use Pro Tools on your computer, if it's not mixed and mastered, it's not going to have that same quality being aired over the radio.
Right.
And so there are so many reasons why you want to nurture a relationship with your program directors, your music directors, your radio personalities. A radio personality can be your biggest advocate, right? And so I remember, and of course, I guess this is a different situation, but it's before Trey Songz became Trey Songz. I remember I found him on MySpace, and the music was just quality music. It was great music, and he was affiliated with other music reps and people, relationships that we already knew. So when you get into talking about, a record rep bringing in an artist, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a fan of theirs on MySpace. I already listened to them. Like, that's how the artist co-sign. So when you do have really great and talented people in the city, and they put out music, and they are connecting with the personalities, and they're asking their feedback or things like that, then you have an advocate within the station. Like, oh my gosh, this song is so good, this should probably be in regular rotation. You know what I'm saying? And there are instances where Keith Landecker and Magic played artists that were just big in the city because they went about it the right way.
Right. Right. Another thing I want you to speak on, I didn't have this wrote down as a question, but I want you to still speak on it. Another thing with artists, they'll come to you and say, play my song. And say if it is mixed and mastered, okay, you pass that test. Then you
Yes.
ask that one question, is it be this? And they say, what does that mean?
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. If you know, if you're getting a song played on the radio, you want to be able to show that your song is playing in that city. You want to be able to show if you're sending your music out and other cities are picking it up and it hasn't been picked up in your hometown, that like this is the printout of all the stations that are playing my song. So you have a barcode, you have a scan code, a BDS code that goes over the airwaves and that's picked up. And so you do have to educate yourself on the business side. It's not
Right,
just about having your music played on the radio. Having your music played on Street Flavor is a good way to get like a pulse, to
right,
kind of get a feel, to have that
right,
experience. But
right,
even with that, you want to have your business in order where you can show you know, all of the ASCAP and just different people that
thank you.
you eventually start to build and do music with and collaborate with for your music, that people are picking up on the work that you're doing. So absolutely. You need to make sure that your music is BDS registered. And if you do have the funds that you can invest, get with a solidified record rep. If you don't have the relationships, be willing to invest in your craft and pay them to market your music to radio stations properly.
Right, right. Glad you said that. Glad you said that. I want to go another direction. Now, being a radio rep, we see the all the fun stuff on the outside looking in. We see y'all at all these award shows. We see the artists come in town. We see y'all on pictures with them. We see the summer jams and the spring jam concerts. So with that being said, Nora, from a radio perspective, give people some things that people don't know, the ups and downs that come with working radio. We know what the ups are, so just give a few headaches or just some things that people wouldn't know what they're going behind the scenes when you're working for the radio station. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
We see the perks. We see the perks. So give us the other side.
so pre-COVID, um, going to the radio sick. And when I say sick, not nothing contagious, but like a migraine or, you know, having a cold. Or I remember one time I was so sick I was vomiting, like vomiting. And I would vomit into a trash can and then I would clean everything up and then I would do my radio break because my voice quality sounded good. So there was no one to cover my shift. Like, and nobody can come do my show. So it's radio. It's not a regular position where you got people on hand that can just jump in for you. Especially earlier in the game when I started, we didn't have backup. I was backup. So if backup couldn't come, you know what I'm saying? So that's one of the things. If the radio station goes off air, if there's a big storm and transmitters have issues, you have your engineers and people that work that aspect of radio, but sometimes you have to manually come in and reset. So if the engineer is at the tower and he needs to be able to communicate with somebody in the studio to manually reset something on the studio, no matter what time it is. I've been to that radio station at 2 a.m. I've been at 6 a.m. I've been at midnight. I've left the radio station when my shift is over and had to go back because it was a technical issue. You know, there are things that technology that we do within the system, and sometimes the system gets stuck, or you may hear something repeating over and over again. We have to manually fix that. At least at one point we did. Now, technology now you can actually do it, you know, from your computer screen at home. But there were times when we had to physically be at the radio station for updates and upgrades, and it's not fun. Your shift is over. You ain't talking on the radio. You just sitting there on the phone with the engineer, and he telling you to push buttons. And this is the software side of it. So this isn't the, you know what I'm saying?
Right, right,
This
right.
isn't the regular software that we're used to using that's like the touch screen. This is behind the screens or the back end of technology when it comes to running a radio station. So some things you have to do manually. There are times when you are so excited to meet your favorite artist and they are a complete asshole.
Hi.
And then you have to shake off, you have to be a professional, you have to shake off anything that happened before you crack that mic to interview them. I have a couple of those stories. Like you build these people up and you're so excited to meet them and it is a complete disaster. And then you have to Power 94 WJTT, this is da 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 da, and
Right,
act like you just didn't have a horrible experience with them.
right, Right.
So there's a level of professionalism to have, but you know, there are times when, you know, my voice would go out. Like I would have laryngitis. Um, so you have to take care of your voice, because if no one can do your show, you have to do a whole show with your voice hoarse, and that actually may be hurting your vocal cords to strain to try to project your voice. You know, it's different from other jobs and positions, but overall, like, yeah, we you know, you push through and you figure it out.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Let me ask you this. You don't have to talk about the asshole people, but name some of the people you've met through your experience in radio, and who are some of the people you met where you was kind of like, damn, I can't believe I met them. Like, I've been waiting to meet that person. Give us a few of those stories right there.
Brandy.
Oh, okay.
I've had the opportunity to meet her 2 times. The first time I met her, she was very jet lagged, but she was absolutely wonderful. And then the second, Brandy is one of those people, I get speechless. I don't know what to say. Like, literally, I don't know what to say. Like,
Okay.
I met Brandy, and the only thing that came out was like, I love you. And she was like, oh, okay. And I was like, I just love you so much. And she was like, oh, okay. Are you okay? You know what I'm saying? Like, I've been a fan of hers for a long time. I think, you know, when I meet legends, like I met Charlie Wilson. That was
Salute.
exciting to me.
Salute. Yeah.
Um, Another person that was just Eddie Levert. I love the OJs.
Right.
So to me, Eddie Levert was really exciting to me. I guess when I meet like people that are considered legends, it's really when I get excited. But I mean, you know, Usher, to me, like meeting
Yeah.
Usher on several occasions, and I had the opportunity to kind of build a rapport with him. That was really exciting. Like when I get to build a rapport with an artist like Lupe Fiasco and different people, like that excites me outside of, you know, the regular interview space. Is like when
Right.
the mic is off and we're talking and they let their guard down,
Right.
and you
Right.
really
Right.
get to like really get to know them.
Right.
Those are the moments that are the best and are the most beautiful to me.
Right. Right. Show the down to earth side. That's personality and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
but I mean, you know, Ma, it's a long list of people that I've
Right.
met that I've been like really excited about meeting.
Give me
And
the
then
top one.
like,
Give me the top one, though. Give me the one that just takes the cake.
oh, Ma, the one that takes the cake. Uh, I don't know. I still think Brandy takes the cake for me.
Okay, Brandon. Okay, all right, all right, all right. Cool. We're wrong with that. Now, okay, Nora was at Power 94.3 on that personality, and then she went to Magic 95.9 in Baltimore. Magic Baltimore 95.9. How did that happen? I mean, what happened? Tell us how did the transition happen?
So I'm gonna try to keep this as short as possible.
Okay.
Actually, I was at Power 94, and I also worked at Streets 94.5 in Atlanta
Okay.
way before Baltimore.
Okay.
So again, it just came from relationships. I knew some people that knew the program director, that knew the APD, that knew the owner of the station, and I leaned on those relationships. Arlinda Garrett, who is just a phenomenal human being, but she really believed in me, and so she is a record rep in the music industry. I told her, reached out to her that I wanted to get on the radio at Streets, and she was like, "All right, I'm gonna make it happen. I'm gonna make sure you meet the right people," and she did. So I worked at Streets 94.5 for about 3 years, 3.5 years in Atlanta. I still lived in Chattanooga, but I commuted back and forth between working for Power 94 and working at Streets in Atlanta. So after I ended up leaving Streets, I still was at Power 94, and an opportunity in communication. So not only, you know, have I been blessed to be a radio personality, a television personality in Chattanooga and Atlanta, but outside of that, you know, I worked for the city of Chattanooga and did some local government communications for youth and family development. And
Okay.
so I have been able to kind of work in other communication spaces around the city that allowed for me to really grow. So an opportunity completely nothing to do with radio at all presented itself in the DC area to take on a communications director position at a nonprofit and a for-profit. So I moved here completely thinking I was done with radio. I was like, No, I'm working for, private government, private agency, moving into the private space, not working for government anymore, but in the private sector.
Right.
And when I got here, a few months in, I realized I ain't like that job. I was like, this really isn't a good fit for me. And then I was like, you know what? Don't nobody know me here. Like, let me see what radio stations are hiring in the area. Because I always knew, even though I had completely walked away from radio, when I came here, I could probably pick up a weekend shift or something. And so I called a few people that knew some people at the DC radio station and at the Baltimore radio station. Baltimore is about 45 minutes from DC.
Right, right.
So I called some people and was like, hey, maybe they need somebody for the weekend. Do you know the program director? Yeah, I know him. I could make a phone call. I was like, bet. I wasn't even asking for a phone call, but sure. And so the program director was like, yeah, send me your information. He sent me my information. And yeah, from there, he was like, let's have a meeting. Had a meeting. And he was like, I really like your voice, but I don't want you on a hip hop station. I want you on the urban AC station that we have that's R&B. And I was like, ooh, I don't know if I want to get out of hip hop. They're going to think I'm old. If I go to just R&B, can I come back? Like, what that look like? And long story short, I started doing weekends. And when I was doing weekends, I learned that they had a nighttime position. And I was like, I'm your girl. Holla at me.
For hip hop. For hip hop.
No, for the R&B station.
Oh, okay, all right, gotcha, okay.
So I ended up getting the nighttime radio job doing nights when I left the other job. So that came open. I did 7 to midnight here, 7 to midnight in Baltimore for like a year and a half doing nighttime radio. And then that actually went away. They decided to go in a different, radio change. They decided do Albie Shore's syndicated radio show at night. So they just left me on for the weekend. And I was like, all right, bet. The pandemic hit, so literally it was perfect timing because I wasn't trying to be in a radio station during the pandemic.
Right.
But I work on Saturdays or whatever, one day a week. It still keeps me in the mix and the flow. And then I get a phone call from my program director, and he was like, hey, we need somebody to fill in when Angie Ange is gone on the Morning Hustle. And I was like, are you recommending me? He was like, absolutely. And so I met with the producers of the Morning Hustle and the Ricky Smiley Morning Show because they kind of all work together. And I sent them my voice work, and they loved it. So now I'm also back in hip hop mainstream. In I think it's like 35 markets for hip hop all across the United States because I'm with Radio One. They have stations everywhere, and I fill in for Angie Ange on the Morning Hustle when she's not in, and I do the trending topics. So everything works out.
Salute to Nori, back in the building. Salute. Nice story. Now, is there anything that Nori is working on that we need to know about? What's coming next? Can we expect anything? What's coming next? Tell us something.
Yeah. So not only do I have the privilege and opportunities to do radio in Baltimore, I fill in also in DC. So coming up, if you're listening to 102.7, I think that's the station, actually in DC, I'll be on that station as well. But outside of radio, I actually own a telecommunications business, and that business is thriving. And so I'm an independent consultant for DirecTV, Verizon, different AT&T, different cell phone carriers, internet services, home security systems with Vivint. So I actually provide those services to people when they are looking to, get new service. They move into new homes, move into new apartments, and want new service or better service. I offer that. I also do communications for a boutique communications firm that's in DC. So I'm actually a digital talent for the District Department of Transportation. So I take traffic advisories and I kind of bring them to life, or instructional videos for the District Department of Transportation here in DC and Prince George's County. I do that for them as well. And I think the other part is I work with Digital Dash PR and the Wave USA, and I host a show called Black and Forth, and we talk about Black culture, the impact of Black culture, what that looks like when we go to Hollywood, what it looks like when we want to be a part of, in movies, what it looks like for our finances, what does it look like to build wealth, what does it look like for Black folks in real estate. And so we've had these various shows with Black and Forth. It's on YouTube under the Wave, Black and Forth. So I have a lot of different projects. I'm trying to get to that millionaire status. So I have multiple streams of income because I want to have generational wealth for my children. So what's next for me? I am going to have my podcast syndicated. I'm working on that. And I'm also going to break into the film industry. I haven't figured out what that looks like yet, but in front of the camera or behind the scenes, but I'm working on that as well.
All right, Nori Nori, motherfucking hustling. That's what's up, man. I love to hear that. Yeah, round of applause, man. I love it. You just told me some shit I didn't even know. I'm glad, man. Congratulations, salute on all that, man. So
thank you.
Before we go, Nori, give me your Instagram, Facebook, YouTube information, all that, where people can follow you. Please do it.
So Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at It's Nori Nori, ITSNORI. It's Nori Nori, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm on Clubhouse. You can look up Enora, Enora, and it's in parentheses Nori Moss. So I'm on Clubhouse if you're on Clubhouse. And then also my YouTube channel, It's Nori Nori TV. It's Nori Nori TV. So you can see some of the work that I'm doing. But yeah, it's out there. I'm upgrading my website. So when I finish upgrading my website, like every single thing that you can figure out a way to contact me, send music, all of that. My website is itsnorinori.com. But the website is active now. So if you want to go to my website and you can't remember nothing I said, it's norinori.com. Ma, thank you so much for having me. You a legend. I appreciate the work that you do. I see you moving. I see you making connections, and you have been in this game a long time, and I have a lot of respect for you, and I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the work that you've done and you're doing. So just thank you for having this time to really talk to you and connect.
I appreciate you, Nori, and I thank you for tuning in. It's much love always, as always. Much love and much success to you, sweetie.
You too.